Hi there, my name is Raquel. Thank you for watching my podcast. Thank you to all new and returning viewers. Today is Sunday, the 29th of April, 2018. For those who are new, I've not been podcasting for the last 6 months or so, but I'll get into all of that later on in the episode. So we're just going to start with projects I've recently completed or I'm currently working on. Sorry, I'm not gonna show everything that I've been knitting on since I stopped podcasting. If you want to see what I have been working on, please just check my Ravelry project pages. That's where every project is uploaded on. Some of them might not be 100% complete with all the yarns I've used, but I try to complete the projects as soon as possible. Complete the project pages as soon as possible. So I'm going to start off showing socks I've been knitting on for Sock Madness. Sock Madness is a friendly competition starting in March every year. You have to sign up during the month of February, and what happens is there's several rounds to, in the end, determine who the end winner is of Sock Madness. And this is my second year participating. And we started in March. Pretty much, it was on the 1st of March we started. This year we got the pattern straight away on the 1st of March. So what happens is that the moderators of the forum on Ravelry, they create a list of specifications in terms of yarns and any extras we might need, like cable needles or beads, to complete one of the pairs of socks throughout the competition. There's the main socks for the competition rounds, and then in between rounds we get bonus sock patterns, which we can work on while we're waiting for the next pattern to come out. I've not knit any of the bonus patterns yet, but there are a couple that I will probably knit. At the moment, I'm just focusing on the competition part of the competition socks, and then in between I'm working on other things to alleviate my hands from knitting on such small needles. I tend to use 2.25 millimeter high sharp needles, or some Addy lace fixed circuit. So we're going to start with the first pattern, which was the qualifying round, and this one is called RGO by RGO Coffee, and here it is. Here's the pair, so you can see that there's definitely a pair. If there wasn't a pair, I wouldn't be through to the next round anyway. So this one is made from the main yarn is tiger yarn, the sock yarn that they sell at Flying Tiger. And then the white is Hertigan Sock 4, which was some leftover that I had from socks I knit last year. And yeah, it was a really simple pattern, really nice slip stitch pattern here. Sorry about the shadows. I'm sitting on my couch today because I don't feel like going up to the dining room table where I usually film, and there's some funny shadows here. Probably because it's still fairly early in the morning and there isn't any direct sunlight coming into my house at the moment. So anyway, what else can I say about it? Yeah, it was a really nice pattern. I tend to not pattern my socks on the foot section because I have had issues in the past where it just, this is the part that's in your shoe, and sometimes the patterning can, if you're wearing tighter shoes, then you really feel it. But I think this one is not too bad. It's kind of like a broken rib type of patterning. And then one thing we did on this sock was a reinforced toe, which makes it nice and sturdier. So I'm hoping that it's going to last a bit longer than usual toes. I've not actually had any issues with any of my socks so far in terms of not lasting long enough or anything. So this was the qualifying round. sock. And like I said, check out my Ravelry pages for all the information on the patterns. So then qualifying round was finished, and then for the very first round we got beaded socks. Now I've beaded patterns before, like items I've made. Last year I did also a beaded sock, which was part of the competition, but this is one I've not done one like this before, so I'm gonna put it on the sock blocker, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna look up my project for this so I can tell you the information. Sorry about the movement. Like I said, I'm on the couch and computer's not really on something sturdy. So second pair of socks were the Blackberry socks by Karen Koopman, and I used some sock yarn that I had bought last year from Donna Maria, her hand painted sock, which was we were told to use a solid, semi-solid sock, and then we had to have contrasting yarn for the patterning. So I'm just going to show you the sock, what it looks like that, and then this is just, it was a plain knitted sock, except for here where we come to the design element. So here's the beads, the little blackberries. Those are the only things we actually added while knitting. All this other stuff is duplicate stitch, so we did all of that after we finished knitting the whole sock. I knit the whole sock first, and then the duplicate stitching. There were a lot of people that did it all the way up to the heel, and then when they completed the heel, went back to the duplicate stitching. I modified the pattern slightly, and it was allowed. There was no problems with that, and that I mirrored the design so that both designs are going, or the stem is going into the foot instead of away from it. So that's what I've done. And I used Malabrigo, a little leftover Malabrigo, what I had for the duplicate stitching. And yeah, I did the standard 2.25 millimeters on the leg of the sock, and then because we had to do quite a long foot, and these fit, they're slightly bigger than the sock blocker, but they actually fit quite nicely. What I did was, because we had to do a specific number of rows after the gusset, I went down to a 2 millimeter needle, which increased my row gauge kind of thing. So I knew I could, or decreased the row gauge. I got more rows per inch so that I could get the right number of rows that I needed to get and still meet the length requirements. So these socks are slightly longer than the 9 inches, but they fit fine. Because this is at a slightly tighter gauge, I really did need that extra length to fit my foot just perfectly. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think I'm going to be giving these socks away. So these were the round 1 patterns, and then round 1 socks, and then onto round 2. And let me again get my project page for that open. Sorry about that. Now these socks were really, really fun to knit. For the first time ever, I did fraternal socks, and I'll show you exactly what I mean with that in just a minute once I get them on the sock blocker. Again, sorry about the movement of the computer. So, for the first time ever, I made fraternal socks. What are fraternal socks, you might ask, if you don't know. Basically, I used the main color for this one. I used the main color as black, and the contrasting color was the white, and that throughout the sock. And on this one I did exact opposite, so I made the main color the white and the contrasting color the black. And then you can see it makes the socks look slightly different, but they're still the same sock. So this was a fun sock to knit because I actually like doing brioche, and this uses brioche in the sock, which makes the whole pattern, which makes the whole sock much larger than, because brioche is extremely stretchy. So I thought I'd started with the largest size, and then I ended up doing the whole leg and then ripping the whole thing out because it was just too large. So I started again with the smaller size, which had less stitches than I usually cast on for. So, but then I did the small size, and they just fit fine. And I really like the effect of these socks. I think I'm gonna have to make some more of these, but in different color schemes. And I actually have enough yarn to make another pair, so I could actually have a pair of just like black ones and a pair of white ones, so to speak. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. So I forgot to tell you the pattern. The pattern is the Checkbox Socks by Rachel Leggett. And like I said, I don't know if these patterns are going to be available on Ravelry after the competition is done. That's up to designers. Project pages are up because we need to create project pages and link to a project. So you can find the actual project page for the, or the pattern page for the socks, but I can't guarantee that they're going to be available. So that was the round 2 patterns. Then I've just completed round 3. Round 3 we got the patterns last week Sunday, and let me just go back. Sorry, get the project page open. I can give you all the information. Sorry about this. So these are the Safe Harbor Socks by Amy Rapp, and these, I'm in like a medium group because each group is divided. We all get divided equally into groups with knitters that have the same, more or less the same amount of time and lifestyle that we have, so that it's fair. That not like for instance, that I'd be in a group with someone who doesn't have a job, who doesn't have any kids, who doesn't have any children, pets. I don't have any kids, I just have pets. But who doesn't have other priorities other than knitting, for instance. So if, say, I wouldn't be in the same group with someone who has the whole day to knit. I don't have the whole day to knit. I have a job throughout the week. I have 3 pets. I have 2 dogs and a cat that need taking care of. I need to cook dinner. I need to clean the house. So there are other things I have to do beside knitting. So, but these round 3 pattern, these socks, it was surprising how fast the spots filled up for the next round, because in each round you start off, I think we started off with 40 people in round 1, and then we went down to 30 people in round 2, and so let's say that 30 people passed on to round 3, and now only 20 people are going to pass on to round 4. So I started these socks around 4 o'clock last week Sunday, and I did the whole leg. Let me show you the socks. It's lace and cables. So there's cables running down here, there's a bit of lace, and then this section is lace as well. Let me just show you that center section because it's quite pretty. That's what the center section looks like. Again, here's the pair, so you can see. So I started these on Sunday. I did the whole leg on Sunday and the heel flap. I finished the first sock on Monday, and then Tuesday I didn't get much time to knit, and then luckily Wednesday was a public holiday here in Portugal. So I just got up in the morning and I had nothing else to do, so I just knit the whole second sock. And I was close to finishing the second sock when I decided to go on Ravelry and go on the group and see, oh, let's see how many people finished and let's see how everyone's progressing. And to my utter surprise, there were like 14 finished pairs already. So there was only 6 spots left to go on to the next round. So I was like, okay, forget everything. I'm dropping everything, because I mean, I've been taking breaks. I've not only been knitting, I've been knitting, taking breaks, taking the dogs out for some nice long walks because it was like nice and sunny. We've been having a lot of rain here in Portugal, but then we had a week of nice and sun. Now it's like this week it's been rain and sunny and rain and sunny. Today's like it's sunny at the moment, but just now when I went to take the dogs outside, it started to rain. So we're having kind of a weird end of the month here in Portugal. So when I realized that there were only 6 spots left to get onto the next round, I was like, okay, drop everything. I'm just going to sit down, focus on these socks, and knit until I finish them. And that's exactly what I did. I took then I quickly took all the required photos, and I posted them on Instagram. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. I can relax now. I took the dogs for a walk, and then while I was on the walk to the with the dogs, I was like, hang on, I've not sent the email to the moderators saying that I finished my socks. And it just so happened I was on a long walk with the dogs, and I was already like halfway through the walk when I realized this. So I kind of rushed the dogs back, which was okay because it was, like I said, it was a warm day that day, and it was really warm, so Dakota was noticing the heat a bit more, so she wasn't too upset with getting home faster. So the minute I got home, I switched on my computer, I made sure all the photos were in on the project page, sent off the email, and then luckily, like about an hour or so later, I got like the confirmation that I was through to the last round. And someone who posted just after me also got through. We were like posting more or less at the same time on the group, so we both got through it. And I think by the end of the evening, all the spots were taken. So in just 3 days, like all the spots were taken, and we still have like another week and a half to go before the end of the round. And I believe most of the other groups are like also all taken. All spots are filled. So this, despite the lace and cables, and I must say it did hurt my wrists quite a bit knitting on these, because not to give too much away of the pattern, but you drop a bunch of stitches and then you pick them up again, and you have to cast on stitches. It just really did hurt my wrists a bit, so I was quite happy to have them done. So yeah, these are my Sock Madness socks so far, and I've been talking to you guys for 20 minutes, and this is all I've talked about. So I'm going to put these away, but before that I can show you the yarn I still have for my other, for the upcoming patterns. I don't have a lot of, either have solid colors or I have like variegated colors. This year we're doing a lot more with solid or semi-solid colors, and a lot of contrasting. So I'm not quite sure what more is in store, but I do have a couple of sock blanks that I want to try use, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. So show you the books of yarn that I still have for Sock Madness. This is some Katya yarn, and this is variegated. Let's see if I can show you. So this is Katya Olay Comfort Sock Tweed. As you can see, it's variegated. I almost used this one in the checkbox socks, but then I didn't. So, and then I have a skein of, so these two are Katya. This is some tiger yarn I still have. Here in the middle is Babel from Drops, and then I have this nice skein from Donna Maria. Donna Maria hand painted sock. Then I have two sock lengths. This one, and I have this one. This also is a Donna Maria sock length. This one I would have to knit the socks two at a time. And with the and this is just this one is from Angela from Donna Agulha. She hand painted this one, and this one I can knit one at a time. I think because I like knitting socks two at a time, but it takes longer for me because so I tend to, especially for these competition socks, I tend to knit them one at a time because I know I'm quicker that way. Anyway, and here are, this is all Hertigarn sock 4 yarn. Last year in March, more or less, I bought all the colors that Balderstone had available. Unfortunately, Balderstone has now closed shop, both the physical shop and the online shop. So this was like the last yarn I got from them at the time, and it's quite nice sock yarn. I've knit quite a lot of socks out of them. There were 11 colors in total, I believe, and yeah, I just now realizing I just didn't tell you what yarn I used for the checkbox socks or for the Safe Harbor socks, but go check out my Ravelry pages, it's probably easier. So I'm just going to take a little break and I'll be right back, rearrange some stuff around here so I can show you what else I have to show you. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I'm back. Let's show you projects I've got on the needles at the moment. I've got 2 long-term projects, which I'll show you first, and then I've got a sweater project which is almost done. I just have 2 sleeves to finish. Hopefully I can do that today. And then I have some yarn and some other acquisitions I want to show you, and I can tell you about some upcoming projects I have planned. So one of the other long-term projects I have is, or one of the long-term projects I started is another sock yarn blanket, and for this one so I've done the mitered square blanket, I've done the pinwheel blanket, and I have made my own. The mitered square blanket was one that everyone was doing. The pinwheel blanket was also one that Mina made one from the Knitting Expat. She made one. I used like a free pattern I found and just adapted it and made the blanket my own. Then at the end of last year, I created my own modular blanket. I did a sock yarn version, and then I did the version with the yarn I actually bought to make it in the first place. So but I still have a lot of sock yarn left over, and sometimes I have like 50 grams, other times I have like 30 grams, or maybe just 10 grams, something like that. So I was thinking, what am I going to do with that? I want to use up as much as possible so I don't have a lot of scraps left over. So a friend of mine, she made a when we started with the mitered square blanket, she decided to join in, but she decided not to do the mitered square. She decided to make strips and make her blanket that way, and I really liked that idea. So I thought, well, that's the next sock yarn blanket I'm going to be making. I'm not doing exactly like I'm not doing it exactly like she's doing. She just does strips and then casts off and then attaches the next strip, you know, attaching it as you go. I've decided to do this the length and then using the technique I used for the pinwheel blanket in turning, making triangles to turn around to make a square. I'm going to use that, or I have used that in my blanket here. So I've started it. I started it this month. Got quite a bit done already. So I've done quite a bit of knitting on this, on the sweater I'm going to be showing you, and on the crochet blanket that I'm doing as well, in between the sock knitting for the sock madness. So I started with this yarn that I had, and this is Donna Maria, her hand painted sock. As you can see, it's self-striping, and I used this to make some socks last year. Then the next yarn, I'm just going to tell you the yarns now, but I don't think I'll be doing that in the future because it's just, I might not remember, but right now I still remember what I'm using, and I have made a list for myself, writing down what it is I'm using so that I can remember, or if I can look it up afterwards. This is Mrs. Robinson hand-dyed yarn. Again, this is Mrs. Robinson. No, this is also Donna Maria hand-painted yarn. Also for, let me just check that list to make sure. It is. So this is also Donna Maria hand-painted yarn. Again, used for socks last year. Then this is Malabrigo in the Velvet Grape colorway. The top one. I'll get to the other one in a second. And this I made like a mini shawl out of it, like years and years ago. And then in 2011, when I went to Knit Nation, I bought a skein of Belmai's lace yarn, and I made the Hitafude out of it, a cardigan, which I've not actually worn yet. I put it away and I can't remember where. It must be in my stack of stuff that I've finished and put away and not actually used yet. But I still had like 130 grams left over of the 300 gram skein, so slightly less than half. And I managed to knit a whole other sweater out of that, along with some other Malabrigo yarn, which I'll probably show you on a future podcast. So I used the leftover I had from the sweater here to do a couple of rows, and then I turned the corner, like I said. This is basically the same technique you used for the pinwheel. I did modify it just a bit so that I wouldn't get any holes here in the middle. And all these stitch markers are so that I know where, here, for instance, here's the corners, so I know where to, up to where I need to go on the next round and everything. Here is the end of the triangle, so I know that I have to, on the next round, start on the triangle here. Then here, this is again Donna Maria. This is some of her hand spun yarn, and I use this in a shawl, and I use the Noro, which is right here, in the same shawl. So I use these two colors in the shawl, and I thought it would be nice to have them together. Now this is the right side of the blanket. I decided to create a feature, and that's like this, where I pick up the stitches, and I thought, well, this kind of makes the blanket reversible, because for me this is the right side of the blanket, but it could easily be this side. I still have to weave in some ends, but once I complete 2 rows, once I complete the full row, this second row here, I'm just going to stop and weave in ends, and then I'll do that every time I add another row. I'll just weave in all the ends as I go. So I still have half the blanket to go, and what I tend to do with these is that I this Noro, for instance, I'm not going to be using that in the crochet blanket most likely. I really like the change of colors from the light to the dark, and it's going to go back into the light. So I really want to use what I have left over here all the way to the end. Sorry, I've had to switch the overhead light on because it's raining outside right now and it's kind of dark in here. So this is one of my long-term projects, as you can see. And at the moment it's in this tin I got at the supermarket. It still fits in here for now. Not for much longer though. So I'm gonna have to get a project bag for this. So that's one of the projects I'm working on. As I mentioned, let me put that there. I mentioned I'm also doing the crochet blanket, and this one I've worked on, maybe not so much, but even though I've not worked on it a lot, I've been able to get quite a bit of it done. Again, this is all projects I started this year. Believe I started this one in February, the end of February. Let me think. Yeah, it was like the last 3 days of February. I didn't want to start a new project, like a new. I had a sweater project planned, but because we were coming up to the 1st of March, I wanted to, have nothing on my needle so I could start the socks if they came out on the 1st of March. I wasn't sure, but I also had a cowl, which I'll get to in a minute, that I started with Angela from Ravelry, and I was going to knit a sweater for that. So I couldn't really start a new project because they were all starting on the 1st of March. So I decided to try to start this crochet blanket, and for the first, in those 3 days, I actually did quite a bit. I did up to, I believe I did all of this. So from the start to about here where the blue is. Can't be sure now. Since then I started putting stitch markers in where I've, so each month I put in, like the previous month. So this is where I ended up in March, and now this is what I've done in April. But okay, so I've not made it a very long blanket. It's not going to be like, it's just going to be a lap blanket, so it is quite wide. I'm going to double this so that it's easier to show. So it's basically my wingspan, so to speak. That's how long it is, how wide it is, and I'm just going to carry on and see how big I make it. Just basically I'm just gonna use up scraps of yarn, and for this I've literally used little scraps of yarn from whatever I have left over. So sometimes you get at the end of a project you have maybe like a meter left over. It's all in here, and I just knot it. I made a magic ball. This is the second one. Okay, the dogs and cat are now playing, so if you hear the noise, it's them all. Soot is currently hiding underneath something, and Rusty is looking at him, wanting him to come out. So anyway, back to the blanket. So I've really enjoyed doing this blanket. Actually, I started, once I started, it's very hard to put down, and like you said, you can see it's colorful. Sometimes there's a couple stripes that go more than, so have more, or like here for instance, here there's like the shorter, here's like the longer pieces of yarn where I have been able to get maybe 1.5 rows across, and then there's the ones where it's variegated, so it looks like it's only little pieces, and then there's actual little pieces there. So yeah, it's just a really fun project so far, and I like making these magic balls as well. Basically what I do, and I have another one that I started already. So so far I've done, this is the second magic ball, and I started with 300 grams. I think I'm about halfway, so I've probably already done 450 grams in the blanket. And And like I said, I'm hoping to finish the sweater, which I'll be showing you next today, so that I can do a couple more rows on this tomorrow, because again, I don't want to start a new project until beginning of May. I have a cardigan I want to make, which I'll show you the yarn for. So project bag. It's just like a makeup bag that I got at the Primark, whatever. Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter, so this is one I've used or started making, and as you can see, I have the from the other blanket, I've got the Donna Maria, that self-striping. I think I left like 5 grams or something to put into the blanket. The pink one, because I already had very little for the striped blanket, I just used that all the way to the end in there. So it's not going to go into the crochet blanket. Then I have, what you can see here in between is the Velvet Grapes, so by Malabrigo, and then this handspun yarn by Donna Maria. It was quite a bit thicker than I remembered knitting it, and knitting it on, when I knit the shawl, I knit I think on 4mm needles, so I didn't notice it too much, but on the 3mm needles I'm using for the blanket, it was becoming really tight, and again it was rough knitting it with on the 3mm at such a tight gauge, so I decided to only use half of it in the striped blanket, and the other half is going to go into the crochet blanket. So I'm going to get a nice big stripe of yellow. You know, because with the crochet it's different than because the yarn I'm using right now, see, it's like thick thin. I'm going to thin this out just a little bit so that it's not too thick. But with the crochet blanket, you don't notice so much if there's like slightly thicker yarn or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue adding yarn to this ball until I have approximately 300 grams, and then I'll just kick it all up and continue with the blanket. And that's what I've been doing. And any little scraps from the striped blanket, I just dump in here. And then occasionally when I don't feel like doing anything, I just start knotting them together and winding it onto the bigger ball. So that's that. And then the final project I'm going to show you is the sweater I'm knitting. Again, Angela from Donna Maria, she asked me to do a sweater workshop. I've done one before, which was a raglan sweater, but she asked me to do there were several people asking for a different kind of sweater construction, and she had some Shetland wool that she wanted to use, and Shetland wool is great for color work, so we decided to go for a yoked sweater, top-down yoked sweater, using color work. So I've already made one by Kate Davies. I have her book, Yokes, and even though those are bottom up, so you'd have to do the whole body first and then you do the yokes, I didn't want to do that at the time, and I reverse engineered one of the patterns to do it top down. So I used that as a base, so to speak, and gave the workshop. And for the workshop, I knit my section all the way to the separation of the sleeves, so that I could then show how to do that. So I'm going to show you the sweater so far. Like I said, I'm already working on one of the sleeves, and I have another one to go. So this is my yoke sweater. There's like short row shaping in the back to make a higher back, and then the yoke, and it looks kind of a short sweater, but I still have to block this. But because of it is a yoke, and because of the short row shaping, it does fall a lot lower. The arm falls a lot lower. It's slightly baggier sweater. It's not a tight sweater. I made this slightly baggier than normal, so even though the body looks a bit short, it's gonna be okay, where it is. And I decided to use the, I don't know if you can see them properly, wool sheep. Seeing as it is 100% Shetland wool, this is Carino 100% Shetland wool. I have a label right here, so it's Carino Shetland wool, and like I said, it's 100% Shetland wool from Scotland, and 50 grams, has roughly 220 meters. Yeah, and this is, I'm using, the dark color is Quarry, and the light gray is Seagull. So those are the two colors. I was actually going to make the whole sweater in the Seagull colorway, so in this light gray, but she didn't. Angela only had, I didn't think, from the calculations I made, she didn't have enough skeins of yarn. However, I've only used 4 for the body so far, and I'm hoping to only use 1. So I've got this one caked up, that I caked up this morning. I'm hoping to only use this one for the sleeve. I'm gonna do the cuff of the sleeve like I've done for here for the hem. I had planned on doing another section of color work here with the sheep, but I've decided not to. Instead, I'm gonna, and you can see where I've marked it off here in the green yarn, I'm just gonna add in one little sheep with duplicate stitching. Seeing as I quite enjoyed it, doing that on the socks, I thought, well, I'll just do it on the bottom of the sweater as well, and leave the rest of the sweater just plain clean. Now, being 100% Shetland wool, it is rustic, so to speak, so it's not like the merino soft, but I don't think it's, after, in the skein itself, it seems a lot rougher, but after you've knit with it, it softens up quite a bit, and after you've washed it, it softens. And I had a swatch here somewhere, but it's gone. Oh no, here it is. So I made a swatch in the round to, so it was knit in the round, and then I just did a 3 needle bind off at the bottom, and I'm gonna just fill this up with some lavender and some toy stuffing, so I can have this in my yarn cabinet, and that's why I've also not woven in any ends. The reason I did my swatch in the round was because the sweater was going to be knit completely in the round, and I thought it was a better way to get correct stitch gauge, especially in the color work. That's why I did the color work. I know I used different colors than in the sweater, and that sometimes the lots and the paint can change. If you hear the growling and the barking, they're looking out the window. So, Rusty, hey Rusty, come here, Rusty, come here, babe, come here. Okay. So yeah, what was I saying? Oh, that sometimes the dye lot, the dye of can change the aspect of the yarn. So ideally, I should have made this swatch in the colors I was using. But like I said, from the calculations I had just about enough yarn that from the colors that I chose. Turns out that I must have overcalculated or something, or like I said, maybe this is slightly thinner because of the dyeing, the color. But it's really, this one has been washed, obviously it's been blocked, and even though it's maybe, like I said, again, it's not merino soft, it is fine against the skin. I have no issue with this. That's not to say that some people might have issues with this yarn against the skin, but after washing I have no issues with this, I could easily wear this next to skin, but I'll most likely wear it like a long sleeve t-shirt underneath it. So that's it in terms of knitting for now, for today, because it's been a while and this is already turning out to be a long podcast, which is not usual for me. I tend to have like 20 to 30 minute podcasts. But now let's quickly go into acquisitions, and I think that'll be it. I'm not going to talk about like all the health problems I've had. It's not worth talking about. If you want to know about it, just ask me and I'll talk about it in the next video maybe. I've also decided that it already takes up quite a bit of time to film the podcast. I'm not going to do show notes. If you have questions, just ask me in the here on YouTube or on the Ravelry group. Before I go on to acquisitions real quick, the knit-along I'm doing with Donna Agulha, it was initially just for March, but we've both decided to make it till the end of the year, and you can knit whatever pattern you want. I have a couple patterns listed. I'll be adding a couple more that I'm planning on making. And I'll add this onto the forum as well. The only condition in entering the CAL, and we'll come up with a prize for the end at the end, is that you have to use yarn bought at Donna Agulha. It can be either yarn recently bought or yarn bought like years ago, or since she's been open. So that's the only condition. You can knit any pattern you want, and I'll talk to Angela exactly to decide how many prizes we're going to have and when we're going to draw them. Maybe we'll do one like in a couple of like at the end of June or something, and then we'll see. Like I said, I've not really decided that yet. I need to talk to Angela about it. So. But there is a CAL going on, so please do join. Several people have already. Have a whole bunch of people knitting a sweater. I've already made one of the sweaters that was on the list. I'm going to be making it again because it ended up not quite turning out the way I wanted it, not quite the size I wanted it, so I gifted it to my mom. And now I'm going to remake it in a different color, and I'm going to make it several sizes bigger than I initially wanted it to be, to make sure that it turns out the way I want it to turn out. So that brings me to acquisitions, and then most of these acquisitions have actually, that's one of the things. This year I decided I'm not going to ban myself from buying yarn, because let's face it, that's never going to happen, right? But if I do buy yarn, then I'd rather it be for specific projects, and the only yarn I can buy without it being for a specific project is sock yarn. So I bought a couple of Ovelha Negra has recently had some new opal yarn, so I bought one of each color, which I don't actually have here to show you, but I'll show you later on in another podcast when I have them, when I'm using them. So I'm going to start with the project specific yarn that I have already, and then show you the acquisitions I got yesterday, which I had not planned, but I wasn't able to resist. I just really wasn't. So I have two sweater quantities here that, well, I'm not going to show you. This is one sweater quantity. The other is I have a couple of the skeins here to show you, but I don't have the rest. Is like in my yarn cabinet. In the yarn cabinet. So the sweater I made that I ended up giving to my mom was the Easy One Fingering Weight by Joji Locatelli, and it's just a boxy type sweater. It's super easy to make, and even though it's fingering, to be able to get to the gauge, that's one of the issues I have. The getting the correct gauge for the patterns with the needle size suggested, and the yarn suggested. I really do not get how the designers get to that gauge, because or I'm like a super tight knitter, because I usually have to go up 2 or 3 sizes, needle sizes. I really I don't know how they do it. I really don't. For the sweater, I'm knitting this sweater on a 4mm needle. Sorry, I'm out of practice. Sorry, guys. Whereas Angela is knitting the same sweater with the same yarn, and she's knitting on 3mm needles. And if you put the two together, hers is way more see-through, as in it's way on her 3mm needles, her gauge is looser than mine. And so yeah, I must be a really super tight knitter. So anyway, for this fingering weight version of the easy one by Howie Locatelli, it's a fingering weight sweater. I'm using a worsted weight sweater, worsted weight yarn on 5.5mm needles, and that got me gauge. So where she used 3.5mm or 4mm with fingering weight yarn, I had to go up to a worsted weight yarn and to 5.5mm. Yarn I'm using is this one. It's the Concept by Katya, or Katya Concept, and it's Gobi lace. And this is a, where is it? 73% wool, 15% camel, and 12% polyamide. And I'm using this color, which is like an ochre, slightly more yellowy than it's coming out on screen. Not quite so brown. And this is normally not a color I would use, but I really like the color, so I'm just gonna make the sweater and wear it. Whether it looks good on me or not, I don't care. So it's just, I've actually been wearing a lot of the sweaters I've made over the past winter. Even cardigans lately. I've been using more of my cardigans because the weather is turning warmer, and so I can wear a t-shirt and wear the cardigan over it, and when I get too hot I just take the cardigan off. So that's one of the things. So this is going to be the easy one sweater by Hohi Locatelli, and I used, sorry about the rustling, I used 10 balls. Each ball, by the way, is 25 grams and 160 meters, 175 yards. I used roughly 10 balls to make the sweater for my mom. So it's a really lightweight sweater. It's 250 grams for a sweater. Usually you use about 400 to 500 grams for a sweater. And I had planned on changing this one slightly and adding cables, but because I only have 11 skeins, I might be able to get some more from a lady who also bought the exact same color, but who was making a shawl out of it, and she might have a couple left over. So I might get 1 or 2 extra skeins, but to not risk running out of it halfway through the sweater, I decided to not do the cables I had planned on doing this. I'll do that on another sweater with some other yarn. So then the other sweater quantity I have is this yarn, Rowan Felted Tweed, and this was a destash from a friend, and this is a nice brown colorway. A lot of it's very tweedy, obviously, and for this one it's very appropriate because the friend who I bought this from, who destashed this, she gifted me a pattern which is the Little Wave cardigan by Gudrun Johnson for Brooklyn Tweed. This like pattern that has been around for several years now. Can't tell you exactly how many, but it's been maybe 4 or 5 years already, and ever since then I wanted to knit that cardigan, but I never really found the correct yarn to knit it with. And then she mentioned that she had this yarn to in stash that she didn't want anymore, and I said, well, do you have a sweater's quantity of it? And she's like, yeah, sure, I have like 12 skeins of it, or 12 balls. So I was like, oh great, that should be enough yardage to knit the cardigan I want to knit. So I still have to swatch, but I've sorry, I've worked with this yarn before. Let me just take a little bit of a drink. Just some iced tea. I've worked with this yarn before, and I usually get the correct gauge. The original pattern uses Loft by Brooklyn Tweed, and I think I can use maybe needle size 4.5, maybe 5, to get the correct gauge, with it still being a nice fabric. And I'm gonna swatch it with the cable pattern for the cardigan. So maybe next time I'll have this on the needles to show you guys. Then some other yarn I recently bought with a project in mind, at, again, Donna Agulha. Now this was silly of me because Donna Agulha, Angela at Donna Agulha, she received this yarn, which is the Manos del Uruguay Marina. She received this yarn and she put up a photo on Facebook and Instagram with the colors that she received, and I was like, well, okay, I want 3 of those colors, but you know, I want to see them before I really buy them, so I didn't ask her to put some aside for me. And by the time I got to the shop, she only had 2 colors. Basically, she only had these 2 colors left over and 1 skein of a 3rd color. So I didn't get to get 3 colors I wanted to get. So now I'm gonna have to go through my stash and add another color. And the idea for this yarn is to make a the new Joji Locatelli wrap that's come out. The one that she's faded. It's similar to the mystery knit along she did last year, but it uses different laces. It uses the same construction technique, but it uses different lace pattern and different. I think there's no ribbing in there like the other one. It's different. It's the same construction but different. So this Merino by Manos del Uruguay is 100% superwash merino wool. It's 800 meters or 874 yards per 100 grams. So this is a lace weight. She suggests fingering weight, but I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna have basically half the skein left over probably. However, again, she uses 5 colors in her faded shawl, faded wrap. I can actually quickly look up which what the pattern is. Let me just quickly look that up. Sorry. So again, it's a 5 color shawl, but I'm not gonna. Okay, she named it Fading Point. The pattern I'm talking about is Fading Point by Joji Locatelli. It's a wrap, and she wants. What does she say here? It's 5 skeins of fingering weight yarn in 5 different colors. I'm probably not going to do the 5 colors. I have some white Malarigo lace in white natural, so I'm thinking of pairing that with this and just using those 3 colors to do the fade. So this color here, this one, the purple one, is called Violeta. That's this one. It's coming out. It's not. It's a very. It's not. It's a semi-solid. So there is some color changes to it, as you can see. And then the other color is Novuk, and it's more of a gray, but there's also purple hints in there. That's why I thought it was like they went together really well. And then, like I said, I'll just add the white because here there's some white in here. Or I might just add some blue. I have blue as well. We'll have to see. But I'm just going to use up as much as possible of this yarn in that wrap, and instead of using 5 colors, I'll use 3 colors. So I'll just basically use this maybe for color 1 and 2, and this one for color 3 and 4, depending on how the pattern works. I already bought the pattern. I just need to see how the fade works. So yeah, that's again project related yarn purchase. And then yesterday I got to Ovelha Negra. I wasn't able to go for the whole morning like I usually do. Sorry, late night. And I walked in, and Joanna, who was there, not the owner, but the other Joanna that works there, who is actually the person who I bought the felted tweed from, she very kindly offered me this magazine as a gift, which is Tricot. It's all in Portuguese, and I've quickly leafed through it, and there's several patterns actually that I quite like and would like to make. It is all in Portuguese. I tend to not read Portuguese patterns, but I've read through a couple of them, and they're very simple, very straightforward, so it's not going to be that hard. Then the stuff I hadn't intended on buying anything at Ovelha, because I said I wasn't going to buy any more yarn this month, because I'd already bought the yarn for the sweaters and I wasn't buying anything else. I wasn't able to resist, because they had this book. Sorry about the reflection there. Which is Koopnitz Soxier Volume 1. And this is a book I've been wanting to get for quite some time. I like all the socks, for instance, this one. I like all these socks. And I thought about getting just the ebook version, but I quite like to have the physical version of this, and I have a coupon code that I can download it from Ravelry, which I'll be doing shortly. So the reason I got this is because Ovelha Negra is now stocking the Soxier yarn, and they just had a new lot of yarn coming in, and the first one I see, and for people who've been watching this podcast a bit longer than, or if this is not the first time watching, you know that my go-to colors tend to be like the blues, the greens, and the purples. Definitely not the bright pink. Yes, it is neon color. This is, what's it called? It's called Xenon. So it's definitely neon pink. And I saw this and I was just not able to resist. But I wasn't going to make neon pink socks, although, that'd be fun. I decided to buy a color to pair it with. Maybe I'll even use it in one of the upcoming Sock Madness patterns. Sorry. So I got Dandurite, which is like just a simple gray. And if you put the two together, it does tone down the pink. It does tone down the pink a bit, and I think knit it up, it should be quite fun. So the socks, they're the socks on the cover. Even though that uses 3 colors, I could maybe add in a darker gray or something. I think that'd be quite fun with these colors. Maybe I should just get a skein of a darker gray just to add. Let's see if I can find the pattern again. So I should here. Okay, so I'll show you this. So as you can see, there's 3 colors in this. So where it's yellow, I would use the pink. Obviously, the light gray, I'd use the light gray. I just need some dark gray. Actually, I have some dark gray, different yarn type in my stash. So maybe, yeah. I don't know, I was not able to resist. So that's what I have for you guys today. Like I said, it's a bit longer episode than I normally do. It's the first one back after 6 months, so you'll have to forgive me from that. Normally, I don't do long podcasts like this. I don't generally have the time, but because last week Wednesday was a public holiday and coming Tuesday is a public holiday, I've taken some time off and have had a bit more time to to do things around the house, and still have quite a bit of tidying up to do, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow and on Tuesday. And so it's going to be a nice short work week again this week. And yeah, I'm going to go back to try to finish my sweater. I really want to get those sleeves done today. Weather's warmed up, so I don't think I'll be wearing it anytime soon, but at least it's ready for upcoming winter, which is still a long way away, but you never know. I might have some chilly nights and might be able to wear it. I'm gonna have to block it anyway, so it's gonna take some time to dry. Although, like I said, the weather's starting to warm up, so my apartment's warming up as well. That's why I'm sitting around in a t-shirt. It's not cold. And I've, like, the thick blankets I usually have on my couch have been put away. I just need to wash them first, and that put them away. So yeah, let me know how you liked the episode. If you want to see some of the projects I've been working on since last time I podcast, just let me know, and maybe I'll just show you a finished project every episode until I've come up to date. I'm gonna let you guys get back to the rest of your day. I'm gonna quickly edit the podcast, and then I'm gonna carry on with my knitting. So happy Sunday, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.